What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point as we're slowly climbing to that 100 episode mark, just hearing new artists, new stories, and hearing some new music. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is hearing artist stories through music and just talking about kind of the whole process in general, the background into music and how an artist really just writes music, what they're kind of doing in the industry, and what their future holds for them. So I'm super excited. And today I welcome Garrett Ricciardi onto the show. Garrett, how are you today, man?
Good, hi man. How you doing?
And not too bad, not too bad at all. It's starting to get winter up here in Boston. Obviously, involves a
Yeah,
lot of snow coming. So we just had our
yeah.
first snowfall a couple weeks ago. So
No
nothing
shit.
crazy yet,
It
but
was 55 degrees today in Missouri. Can you believe that? It was almost 60 degrees.
that's
Isn't that
beautiful.
insane?
I wish it was 60 degrees here. It's like 20 degrees, and like the
And then,
wind chill, it's like 10.
yeah, for Friday, it's going to be like a high of like 32 or something like that. Something. Hey, that's Missouri weather. They always say if you don't like the weather in Missouri, wait 15 minutes. That's what they say.
No,
It's stupid.
that's what we
Yeah.
say. No, that's literally what we say up here in Boston too. I
Yeah.
It could literally be sunshine and 60 degrees, and next thing you know, we're getting 7 inches of snow. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's crazy, man. But so kind of really just jumping right into the first question, it really just kind of sets up the whole interview and really sets up your story through music is where did kind of singing and playing really come about for you? Because I know for some people, it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and then it just kind of develops from there. But I like to compare it to someone like myself who really only started back in 2018. So that was only 4 or 5 years ago. And
Mhm.
it just, some people start at all different ages and all different parts
Right.
of their life. So where did kind of everything come about for you?
Yeah. I'd say I always enjoyed singing, just in the car or to my parents or just, anyone who would listen whenever I was younger. I remember my very first favorite song was Something to Be Proud of by Montgomery Gentry, I think is who sings it. For
Yeah.
some reason, that was just my favorite song in the whole entire world. And that song kind of made me ask for like a guitar for my birthday whenever I was like 6 or 7 years old. And then I kind of messed around with that guitar for a little bit until I got bored. And then I always just kind of enjoyed singing. And towards like my end of high school, I would like look up like whoever, just for an example, look up Luke Bryan, acoustic, whatever, karaoke, instrumental, and then I just kind of like sing over it and just record it and listen to myself, not share it with anybody.
Yeah.
But then it really got, I guess, serious, if you want to call it serious, what it is now. Um, I'd say about 2 years ago, I got my first full time job and I had enough money to buy a guitar, like a good one. So I went and just bought one and I kind of just played it. I played it for I don't know, a couple months. And then, just trying to learn the basic chords. And then I kind of left it alone for a couple months. And then I came back to it and actually fully started to learn everything. And I kind of just learned everything off YouTube. I had a couple buddies who played. So and they helped me a little bit, but most of it was just kind of figuring it out. And I basically just wanted to learn. I think I told you this whenever we talked before. I just wanted to learn enough to play Zach Bryan and Tyler Childers songs. And that's kind of what I did. So that's all. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome, man. I mean, like I said, it's always just so cool to hear people's story and how they start because
Yeah.
you can sit there and listen to a great artist like Zach Bryan, like Luke Combs, Morgan Wall, and all of them and be like, yeah, cool, that's a great song. But like at the end of the day, like it's really cool to hear how they started in music and like how they first picked up their guitar and learn
Right.
their first couple of chords and stuff like that. So it's always cool to start with that question to really build on the whole interview and to build your
Right.
story. And then obviously, kind of speaking of some of these artists, obviously you kind of touched up on Zach Bryan, and I know you're a big like Tyler Childers fan, the Lumineers
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But talking about inspirations is kind of the next question I kind of have for you because I could sit here for hours and just
Mhm.
I could just set up a podcast about inspirations at this point.
Right.
And I mean, I grew up on that 90s, 2000s kind of country with Travis Tritt, George Strait, Garth Brooks. But then I always tell people is Chris Daughtry, rock and roll artist, one of my all-time favorite
Right.
artists, easily, hands down. But so my question kind of for you is, who are some of your inspirations, and who are some artists that you kind of really look up to when it comes to singing and songwriting?
I've kind of been waiting for someone to ask me this question as far as who like my inspirations and stuff are.
Mhm.
It's it's such a wide range. It's kind of hard to narrow down. So like whenever I kind of just mainly listen to like hip hop, like rap type stuff. And I whenever I was really younger, obviously with the Montgomery Gentry, I listened to that early 2000s country. I'd say as a whole, like Frank Ocean plays a big really the genre of stuff that I like to sing, but whenever I'm songwriting, that's a big play. Zach Bryan, obviously, like you talked about, and Tyler Childers as well. And then I also draw from like even like Drake, like some of the stuff that he's put out, some of his slower stuff.
Yeah.
Um, just it's a and then I'd be mad if I didn't bring up Catfish and the Bottlemen. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before.
Yes.
I was really heavy into them whenever I first started playing guitar. So some of like the first songs that I wrote were like super like I didn't have quite the musical capabilities to make what I wanted to make, but I would just like some of the first recordings were like, whoa, like I'd just be trying to do heavy rock with just an acoustic guitar, and then this wasn't quite working out. But I pulled from just a lot of those different guys. Here lately, I'd say my biggest sources have been like the Zach Bryan and Tyler Childers. Let me think here. Jason Isbell, he's another big one.
Yep.
I'm not a huge fan of like I love his music. I like his music, but what I really enjoy is his actual like that the songwriting that he does. I think a lot of people do. He seems to be pretty big as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a conglomerate of people, as
Yeah.
feel as most people's are.
No, and honestly, that's awesome because sometimes when I ask that question and like I interview like a country artist, or I interview a pop artist or something, they only give artists just in that genre because
Yeah,
that's really all they know. So, and I'm always like the first one to say is don't box yourself into that one genre.
right.
Like there are so many other great things out there. Like you can like cross like go into different platforms. Like there's four lanes on a highway for a reason, and I tell people that all the
Right.
time because you can go at whatever speed you want to go at and go whichever lane you want to go to see where it takes you. And it's always just really cool when people do mention all those other artists like you just did. um in kind of talking about all these artists too is their songwriting aspect, kind of like you were just touching up on a little bit, and that kind of leads into this third question because the songwriting process is just it's wild. I mean, that's really the only
Right.
good way to describe it. And I have to shout out Garrett Walker, who was on the show. He said the songwriting process is like a puzzle, whether you have that 100-piece puzzle, 500-piece puzzle, you have all these pieces kind of scattered around on the table and you're trying to figure out where these
Hmm.
pieces fit. Eventually you start putting the
Right.
border together, you start putting the middle together and say, okay, now I know where kind of these pieces fit and how this puzzle's going to play out. And by
Right.
the end, you have this full masterpiece, you have this full thing, and be like, hey, look what I just created, look what I just made.
True.
Um, so obviously there is no rhyme or reason to this kind of question. There is no wrong or right answer, but when it comes to writing music for yourself, what is your kind of process like? Because I know for some people it starts with a melody, some people start with the lyrics, and it kind of just goes off from there. But what is your process like?
It's so sporadic. Like I feel like I'll just be driving home from work and like I'll be listening to whoever, and then I'll kind of turn it off and I'll just kind of bob my head and just kind of sing something to myself. I'm like, huh, that could be something, and then I'll just record it real quick. But then there'll be like times where I don't have anything for like months. Like here, I'd say here the past here a couple weeks ago, I've had some stuff going, but before that, like the past like 3 or 4 months, it's been like dead. Yeah, so like if someone were to get their hands on this, it would be bad because they would get it and they would like scroll through all of the thousands and thousands of like 10-second random one line things that I would have, and they'd be like, what in the hell is going on? This makes no sense. Which a lot of it doesn't. And that's I don't know. That's kind of why I don't really have a good answer, because I don't have an answer for myself when it comes to that. It's mostly just like if I think of something, I'll record it on my phone and then I'll come back to it whenever I have time to actually sit down and play something to it. But there's really no process. The process is it's no process. That's kind of yeah.
No, exactly. And I mean, I forget who I was talking to a couple weeks ago. Doing an interview, but like I said, there is no rhyme or reason to it. If there was a book on how to songwrite, then everyone would be able to do it.
Right,
But it's such a complicated process. But when you do really start writing, it's such a great process to go through,
right,
especially when you're dealing with a lot of stuff. Like I know for me, like it's emotions for me. It was like when I'm
right,
like in that mood, like if I'm in a happy mood, sad mood, like whatever, like out with a friends kind of mood, like that's when it hits me like on the spot. I'm like, you know what?
right.
Like all of a sudden these lines start coming, and I mean people know what voice memos are. If you don't have voice
Mhm.
memos as an artist on your phone, then you're crazy to me,
Yeah,
honestly. Like I don't
yeah,
know how you even like produce, write, or sing music at that point
right,
if you don't have those voice
right.
memos. But it's
Yeah,
just
and I think the emotional thing is definitely interesting because I'd say here, because I've only actually been trying to like write my own music for maybe 6 or months or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. But the first like 5 songs I made, I would make them and then I would play them for like my girlfriend or my mom or somebody, and I'd play them. And they goes, "What?" Because I would sing about things that like going through a breakup or something like that. And I've had the same girlfriend for like 7 years. So it would like she'd be like, "What do you mean?" Like what I was like, I don't know what to write about. Like that's what I hear, on Spotify or whatever. So here the past like couple months, I've started to kind of dive. I've been able to dive more into what like I actually like feel or like what I actually know from personal experience.
Mhm.
But also, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to write about. If you're in a great relationship and writing about a breakup, I think it's kind of a cool ability to be able to put yourself in a mental space to where you can talk about those things and connect with people who are all going through that. Which I mean, I'm not discrediting anyone who does that. That's a complete talent in its own right.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome, man. I mean, there's so many artists out there that just do so many different things with their music.
Right.
And I mean, with social medias and stuff, it's hard to sometimes get your name out there. And it's kind of leading into this fourth question, and people know where this one's going because it's always the hardest question that I do ask on the show. But I mean, with all these social medias, like I just mentioned, like TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you post your music and wherever you try to promote who you are as an artist, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other people trying to do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing in the same, sometimes it's the same genre, sometimes it's different genres, and it's hard to really get your name out there. So, kind of my question for you is like I always tell people is thank God I'm the one asking the questions and not answering because I so this one always tricks me sometimes too. It really makes me think about who I am. But at the end of the day, is what makes you you kind of compared to these other artists, and what can we kind of start taking away from some of your music that we can't find in anyone else's music?
It's a good question. Good question. I think that a cliche answer would be my music reflects myself and it's what but it kind of is true, I guess. Like I said, I kind of just started getting into that part of my own writing is feel like what I feel. Um, I think with my stuff, me personally, my favorite music that I like listen to is kind of like underproduced, like pretty like raw, you're not like you're not gonna get like Morgan Wallen level production, and you're not gonna get kind of like the earlier Zach Bryan stuff and earlier Childers stuff is kind of what I think. Which that's not me being original, that's me copying somebody, but that's not that's the answer to the question. Um, It's a good question. I don't know. I guess my music, since I listen to so many different artists and so many different genres, my plan for this, if I continue to kind of make music, is to not just release country music or indie music or whatever. I like think it'd be cool to do like a rock album. And I think it'd be really cool to do like more of like a pop e type hip hop type stuff. I think it'd be cool to do a country album. Like I think my predominant genre is like country, the indie country type lane. But I think what makes me unique is I don't just want to do that. I want to do like everything just because I feel like that I could. I don't know if the country stuff's the best for me. I could be better at rock or better at whatever. I think for me, if you were to follow along with me, you will probably see some sort of rock album, some sort of like poppier type thing, and then also like your country stuff too. Like I feel like you'll get if you're not a fan of one thing, then you'll probably find something else that you're a fan of. Is kind
Yeah.
of what I think.
No, and that's awesome because it's just like I kind of touched up earlier and said this is you don't box yourself in, and that's kind of
Yeah.
really what makes you you is you know that
Mhm.
like hey, like yeah, I can do a country album and who knows, maybe 2 years from now you guys are gonna hear a rock album and
Yeah.
pop and stuff like that. And that's what really kind of draws me into like especially what you're doing because the sky's the limit for you at this point.
Right.
If you have that in your mind and you're just especially if you're just having fun with it too, that's really what it's all about is if you love what you're doing and you're having fun with it and you know that you have so many doors that you can try to open yourself, then that at the end of the day, that's what's really cool about you.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I never really kind of expected anything to ever come out of that TikTok. Like kind of whenever you first called me, I told you that I didn't really want anybody to see, like I didn't even really want anybody to see it. I kind of just put it out just because I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah,
And if I kind of move forward with stuff, that's kind of what it's all gonna be. It won't really be, I don't know, it won't really be to get like a bunch of likes or anything like that. I don't really care about that as much. It's more just if I feel like making something that sounds like Olivia Rodrigo, I'll make something that like in that lane. Or if I feel like something that sounds like, or making something that sounds like Kings of Leon, I'll do that. Like it's, I guess I just I don't really care. I'm not driven really by like likes or like follows. I don't really care as much like money. Like I don't, the way I see it, I don't really see it getting to that point anyway. So
mhm.
if it's kind of freeing in the way that you can kind of just do whatever you want because you're not always constantly worrying about I got to get more followers, gotta this song has to get more views.
Yeah.
It's kind of freeing in a way just because you don't have any expectations. You're just doing it for fun, which makes it a lot easier in my mind. For me
Exactly.
anyway.
No, and I mean you couldn't have said that any better. You basically that's perfect. Like nothing really I can add to touch up on that one. And so I'm kind of just gonna start leaning into the final question before we hear some
Yeah.
live music from you, which is always my favorite part. But obviously you talked about maybe eventually somewhere down the road is doing all these different albums and different genres and stuff like that. But kind of for yourself is just what are some of your short term and long term goals and what can we actually kind of just expect down the road from you?
So my short term, I would say, is just getting probably a more than a song, like one of my own songs out on Spotify somewhere or Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. Putting out one of my own songs. I do have a song out that just came out like the other day. But I want to put my own song out. And then long term, I just have fun with it. I don't. I've had issues with music itself in the past with kind of whenever I first started being so serious about it and just being okay, well, I did this and nothing happened of it. This sucks. I hate it. I need to do better. I need to invest all this time into it. Um, that's why I don't really. I'm not going to say, oh, I'll have an album out by next January or June because I don't know. It could be 2 years. It could be five. It could be a month from now. I have no clue. I'm very like loose within how I do stuff and I
Yeah,
don't like to kind of be tied down because I feel like as soon as you put any kind of date on anything, it just kills so much of like your creativeness with it because you're always thinking about the date it has to be released. You're forced to box it in a way. So I'd say to answer your question is short term, I'd like to release an original song. And then long term, I guess long term, I'd like to put out a couple different albums, like a full scale album, like put it all together. I don't really care what the genre is, just something that I can just put out, you know.
yeah, no, and that's awesome, man. I mean, definitely just from like some of your covers and stuff that I've seen and how I kind of first found you, like I definitely love what you're doing, and I just can't wait to see what else is going to come for you.
No, I appreciate that.
No, of course. So kind of before we start hearing some live music from you, real quick is just actually where can some people kind of go find you on social medias?
TikTok is my only music one. It's Garrett Rischerty Music. Richard spelled like Richard, or Rischerty spelled like Richard with an ET on the end. And then I just put out the song. I covered Her in the Banks. It's on Spotify and Apple Music and everything else. And that it should be on everything. It's on Spotify for sure. And then that's just my name, Garrett Rischerty. Richard spelled like with an ET on the end.
Yeah, no,
But yeah, that's all I got for
no
my socials. Yeah.
Nah, awesome. I mean, people definitely need to go check him out. Obviously, we're gonna hear some live music here now. That's always kind of the fun part of the interview. So, other than that, man, usually what I say is I'll kind of put myself on mute. And other than that, if you want to let us know what you're doing, and kind of the floor is yours.
Hair like the sun, and eyes just as green as the ridgeline we walk, scanning the trees for the wave of a tail. Shake of the leaves, Lord, I give the whole world for a sight of those things. Hands just as soft, skin on the fruit that breaks down the branch. Need the bluest of moons, Lord, we'd eat till we sick, and grab all we could hold, and we'd run through the yard with the fruit that we stole. And her love makes me feel like I'm home, keeps me good company wherever I go. And I'm smiling, it's her and the banks, the big sandy river that colors my face. Love just as strong as Lawrence County shine, it'll mow you right down, it'll make you go blind. I would ruin my life and use up all my pay just to have her tonight. It's just her and the banks, and her love makes me feel like I'm home, keeps me good company wherever I go. And I'm smiling, it's her and the banks, the big sandy river that colors my face.
And there you have it. Thank you, Garrett, so much for doing that tune for us. And that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point. It's Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got new music, new artists, new stories. Never know who's going to pop through. Slowly getting to that 100 episode mark. So y'all stay tuned for next week. And thanks for tuning in today.